Hello, my name is Aiden Vaughn, and welcome to my channel. Today I will be reviewing The Man of Steel by John Byrne. It was written and drawn by him, and in my opinion, it is a very good comic. I highly recommend it to you. Now, it was released in the mid-1980s, and it's the retelling of Superman's origin. So it starts off with, Superman's parents sending him to Earth, and then Mr. and Mrs. Kent finding him in the field in Kansas, and then they raise him to be a good person, and that's the gist of book one. It's a six-part miniseries, and I have all six issues in this little sleeve here. Got it for a reasonable price at a convention. It was about $5. And sorry, I was itching my arm. And so in book two, it shows him growing up, becoming the man that we know he's going to be, and falling in love with Lana Lang. If you'd seen the Smallville show, it would touch on that. Then he moves to Metropolis to, be a big city guy, and then he catches a plane that's falling out of the sky, and Lois Lane sees him, and she's like, "Wow, that guy's pretty cool. I'd like to get an interview with him for the newspaper." And so she yells after him, she's like, "Hey, I'm a reporter. You want to tell me your story?" He's like, "Nope," and flies away. And so that's book two. Book three, it's him becoming Superman. He starts working at the Daily Planet, and he starts wearing glasses as his disguise because he doesn't want people to know that he's Superman, so he can have a life to himself. And he officially meets Lois Lane there, and Jimmy Olsen, his pal, and from then on he just starts being Superman and the reporter Clark Kent. And so that's book three, and he also meets Batman around that time, and they take on a villain named Magpie in Gotham City, and all the while they disagree with each other's methods because Superman's like, "Oh, you gotta follow the legal system," and Batman's like, "Well, it lets murderers walk free and rapists, so why would I want to protect a system that lets those sons of guns go?" And he probably would say something a bit more vulgar than that, but I don't want to be profane. Anyway, so Superman and Batman, they team up, they defeat Magpie, and they're like, "You know what, let's be partners sometimes, if the need arises, but, I still don't like the way you do things, nor I you, Superman." And so then book four, he meets Lex Luthor, who's his main enemy, like the Professor Moriarty to his Sherlock Holmes, or the yin to his yang, and his Joker to his Batman. And so he meets Lex, and he's like, something's off about him. He's a businessman who seems legit, but doesn't really act that way. And so and it turns out that Lex is in love with Lois Lane, but so is Clark. And so he's like, "Geez, now that's a pickle that I've gotten myself into." And so Lex's boat that he and Lois and Clark are on gets hijacked by these terrorists. And so Clark's like, "Geez, this looks like a job for Superman, but I don't want to blow my cover." So he just pretends to get thrown overboard by the pirates, and then or terrorists or whatever. And then from there, he changes into his super suit and defeats them and saves everyone. And he figures out that Lex hired the terrorists to hijack the boat for some convoluted thing. I don't really remember. As I said, I recommend you read it for yourself. This is just me giving you the gist. And so he takes out the pirates and figures out that Lex was behind it. And then the mayor was on the boat as well. And he's like, you know what, Superman, I like you. You can be a, agent of the law, and I will grant you that power. He's like, thanks, Mr. Mayor. And the mayor's like, okay, Superman, arrest Luthor. He's like, okay. And he arrests him, and then Luthor swears a vendetta. And then in book 4, it's Lex. Lex gets out of jail, and he swears to kill Superman, and he does all these weird plans to try and kill him, but fails, and then he creates Bizarro, who's an opposite of Superman, like a carbon copy. And so Superman fights Bizarro, and he's like, geez, this guy's as tough as me. And so he defeats Bizarro, and then we also meet Lois's younger sister, Lucy, who is living with Lois, and she is blind. But then Superman cures her blindness, so she likes Superman now. And Lois falls more in love with him, and then she finally gets that interview. And so she's the first person to get an interview with Superman. And so that whole professional romantic relationship sparks. And as I said, this is just the retelling of his origin and the origins of some of his supporting characters. And so then book 5, it's book 5 is a continuation of the whole Bizarro thing. And then book 6 is him finding out that he's an alien from the planet Krypton, and he's like, oh, I mean, the ship that I came in didn't really give me much information. And so, he sees like a ghost of his father, Jor-El, and we see Lana as an adult, and she's like, I love you, Clark, and I know that you're Superman, but because you're Superman, I don't think that we can be together. And Clark's like, but Lana, I love you so much. And she's like, I know, and it breaks my heart. And then he realizes that he loves Lois just as much as he loved Lana. And so, again, that's going on while he's seeing his father, and then it turns out it's a hologram from the ship, not a ghost. And the hologram tells him that he is Kal-El from Krypton. And so he's like, okay, that's good. Now I know who I am. And then and then it ends with him pledging his life to save the Earth from any disaster or anything, just to be its protector. And that is The Man of Steel by John Byrne. As I said, I recommend it to you. And next week I will be reviewing Batman Year One by Frank Miller and David Mazzucchelli. Alright, thank you.